Wait a minute, that's not right.
An IC title rematch goes 2 out of 3 falls. It's a night of natural disasters with tornadoes and tsunamis in Texas, and Rhea and Pearce look to outsmart and outlast the Judgment Day. Okay, and the news! And the news indeed, it is Monday Night Raw from Austin, Texas, and we had an incredible 2 out of 3 falls match for the Intercontinental title between the new champion Bron Breakker against the former champion Sami Zayn. So Breakker started off pretty strong here, impressively learning something from Zayn's prior moves, where Zayn attempted to jump over Breakker, but Breakker caught him midair and landed a spine buster. However, Zayn was also still impressive, hitting a springboard tornado DDT. However, Breakker started to overpower Zayn and was punishing him in the corner when he ran to the opposite corner to get some momentum, but Zayn followed right behind Breakker and landed a haluva kick, stunning Breakker and picking up the first fall. But from there, that only got Breakker more angry, and as they went outside the ring, Breakker threw Zayn over top of the barricade and crashing him into a chair, which looked very dangerous, and we're just very lucky that Zayn was not seriously injured. However, that was pretty much the end of it, as Breakker then dominated, hitting a Frankensteiner, or a Breakensteiner if you're Pat McAfee, then a Gorilla Press Slam, and followed it up with 2 spears to get the second fall, tying the match 1-1. Then, whether it was from faking it or whether it was pure instinct, Breakker went for that third fall immediately, but Zayn rolled Breakker up nearly, stealing the victory. However, this match then went outside the ring, and Breakker landed a flying clothesline onto the announce table, which nearly had Zayn counted out, but Sami finally got into the ring just barely, beating the count at 9. And Zayn then continued to show his resiliency by somehow landing a sunset flip powerbomb off of the turnbuckle and then stopping Breakker's spear attempt with a big boot. However, as Zayn was continuing his offense, jumping off of the top rope, Breakker landed a spear, jumping him and catching him in midair, and that was it. Breakker got the third fall to win the match. For Breakker, this was his first successful title defense, and he's now won 3 in a row, improving to 10-4. For Sami, he's now dropped 3 out of the last 4 and has fallen to 11-8. And it looks like he'll be going to tag team action, partnering with Jey Uso to try to win the tag team titles against the Judgment Day. In tag team action, we had a #1 contenders match for the women's tag team championship between Damage Control's Io Sky and Kairi Sane, and Sonya's new trio with Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. However, the name that they came up with is the Pure Fusion Collective. So between that name and last week's reveal of American Made, things are not looking so good for newly named trios. So, wow, Pure Fusion Collective, I guess that's what we're going with. But I guess it's better than me having to keep coming up with new ways to say a 3-person group's name, so I'm at least thankful for that. Nonetheless, the match was pretty even for the most part, but eventually Io Sky looked like she had things in control, landing a backbreaker and then setting up for the over-the-moonsault when Sonya distracted the ref, allowing Shayna to push Io off of the top rope. Zoe was then able to throw Io to the outside and onto a sitting Alba Fire at ringside, but when Zoe went for the super kick, Io got out of the way and landed one right on Alba's face instead. Well, nonetheless, Io countered with a nice shote on Zoe and then landed the over the moonsault to Well, it looked like she was going to get the win, but Isla Dawn helped out her friend from getting super kicked and broke up the pin, nonetheless getting a DQ win for Io and Kairi. Well, the fight continued from there with all 6 participants battling it out, but the Unholy Union stood tall as they cleared the ring with that backbreaker swanton combo move. For the match itself, this was surprisingly Io and Kairi's first traditional tag together. So they are 1-0, but they do become the #1 contender. And for the second time in just 3 weeks, WWE has had a new tag team in their first match become a #1 contender when the Bloodline did it just a couple weeks ago in that gauntlet match. For the PFC, that stops their 2-match winning streak, but they are still a very impressive 8-3 in traditional tags. However, because it was a DQ win, somehow our brilliant general manager decided that this should be a triple threat match for the Women's Tag Team Championship next time. Well, I feel badly for punishing Io and Kairi for this, as they clearly had this match won after the over the moonsault. But I guess I don't feel too bad about punishing Fire and Dawn for this, since they should have just let this match go to a conclusion. So instead of that 50% chance to win, they will instead have that 33% chance. In other tag team action, we saw Otis and Tozawa of the Alpha Academy take on the Creed brothers of American Made. But we had Ivy Nile coming up to Maxine before the match, asking her first to stay backstage during the match, and then asking if she might want to join American Made. However, Maxine declined both offers, saying that she could not leave her guys behind. Well, as Alpha Academy was making their way to the ring, Oba Femi, the North American champion, was standing ringside, and he had some words for Otis. So maybe Otis should do something about that and head to NXT and challenge Femi. But once we got to the match, there were obviously no tags in a tornado tag match. So Otis took a heavy beating from the Creed brothers because Tozawa yet again did not do a very good job of helping out his teammate. However, somehow they came back with Otis using Tozawa as a weapon, both swinging him around using his feet as a weapon and then throwing him over the top rope to land on top of both Creed brothers. Eventually, Otis took control and landed a World's Strongest Slam and a Caterpillar on Julius, but yet again it was not enough to get a pin. But after Tozawa landed a nice senton off of the top rope, the Alpha Academy really looked to be gaining momentum. However, Ivy came out of the crowd and attacked Maxine, throwing her face first onto the top of the announce table and then locking her into a dragon sleeper that, as you would guess, caused Otis to be distracted and kicked out of the ring by Julius. However, Tozawa smartly took this opportunity to try to roll up Julius from behind. However, he was not able to do so, and instead Brutus rolled him up, and together with Julius, they double stack pinned him to pick up the win. Well, for the Creed brothers, they've now won twice against the Alpha Academy in 2 weeks, so that is padding their record and getting them back to 500 at 2-2, while the Alpha Academy now stays winless at 0-4 in all tag matches. To start the show, Rhea came out calling out both Dom and Liv and saying that Dom could not get his dirty D deep enough. However, Dom and Liv interrupted Rhea from the top of the arena, with Dom explaining that he's a man and deserves to be treated like one. And then Liv followed up by saying that Rhea has absolutely nothing. However, Rhea disagreed and said that their talk gave them time to find them, and Damian Priest came up from behind and started to beat down Dom in the concourse, down the steps, and back into the ring before Carlito finally came out and saved Dom, which led to the match between Priest and Carlito, where Priest mostly dominated it, but Carlito seemed to counter just enough to keep things going for a while. However, as you would expect, Priest overcame it and landed a South of Heaven chokeslam to pick up the win. But, as you would also guess, JD McDonough first came out and attacked Priest from behind, followed by all of the members of the Judgment Day. But Rhea then came out, so they were able to fend everyone off. However, Dom was not quite done and attempted to take down Priest as he and Rhea were hugging. However, Priest caught him in a choke and passed him over to Rhea for a riptide that she was not quite able to land because Liv saved Dom from the apron. For the match itself, Priest does win his second straight week over his former brothers in the Judgment Day and goes to 8-2 in one-on-one action, while Carlito has now dropped 5 out of 6 and falls to 2-6 in one-on-one matches. In other men's singles action, we saw The Miz take on Big Bronson Reed when Reed walked into Pearce's office and demanded he either have a match or he would find a second victim. Then we saw The Miz looking awfully sad, but R-Truth then tried to cheer him up by getting him an IC title match against Braun, but it turned out he messed that up as usual, and it ended up being a match against Braun's son. So, in the match, Reed mostly pummeled The Miz, but The Miz tried to come back with a really nice DDT and the It Kicks, but those kicks just seemed to annoy Reed more than anything. He landed the Death Valley Driver and a Tsunami and picked up a nice win. However, Reed then went back up to the top rope to try to land more Tsunamis on Miz when Truth got in the way to try to stop him. But Reed would not be denied, hit a crossbody, and then would not stop until he hit 6 more Tsunamis, injuring R-Truth. But Reed does get his 5th win in 6 one-on-one matches and has somehow improved to 500 at 6-6. While The Miz, since he's been focusing on the tag division, this was his first match since February and is just 2-3 in one-on-one action. Lastly, we had the main roster debuts for both Odyssey Jones and Vincent Winey. For Jones, this was his first televised match since April 4th, 2023, when he lost to Dijak on NXT, but we'll note he was supposed to have a match 2 weeks later, but Braun Breaker came out of the crowd and hit a devastating spear that put an end to his NXT career. And I guess we hadn't seen him since. But for Winey, he just joined NXT a few months ago, so this was his first televised match anywhere. So congrats to him for having his first match on Monday Night Raw. And we should also congratulate him for going right after Jones as soon as the bell rang, as Jones was still just putting away his extra shirt. And he managed to land a few shots before Jones quickly turned things around as a much bigger man and ended it with a sidewalk slam in just over a minute and a half. So Jones picks up the win, going to 1-0, and Winey falls to 0-1, and hopefully he'll get some more time in NXT before he battles someone like Odyssey Jones again. However, more importantly, the Final Testament came out after the match to interrupt the celebration, and Cross called out Xavier Woods, saying that Kingston was just trying to replace him with Odyssey Jones, which of course Woods vehemently disagreed with, and as he was attempting to set up a tag match, Kingston grabbed the mic and instead turned it into a 6-man tag match, which Xavier Woods did not look too pleased at, as he's not been too happy these last couple of weeks with Odyssey Jones on board, and maybe that means Karrion Kross is getting exactly what he wants. And beyond the mat for Raw, in this week's Wyatt 6 video, we saw Bo Dallas saying things were coming full circle and getting heavy, as he was also watching a Wyatt 6 video. So a video inside a video. Pretty wild stuff there, right? Anyways, the video had Uncle Howdy saying the work must continue, which apparently is good, because we later saw Chad Gable with his own video from Paris saying that he has unfinished business against the Wyatt 6. Well, Drew McIntyre sought out Adam Pearce, saying that CM Punk was now old news, and he wondered why Randy Orton was getting a title shot before him. So when Gunther interrupted Randy Orton in the middle of the ring, saying that Orton should be the greatest of all time instead of merely one of the greatest of all time, and further saying that Orton is a screw-up and is the biggest in a long line of screw-ups following his grandfather and father, McIntyre interrupted them walking to the ring, which caused Gunther to turn around and Orton to hit an RKO. And just a few seconds later, as McIntyre was getting into the ring, CM Punk came out of the crowd and started to attack him. But McIntyre took control, took off his belt, and was about to start whipping Punk with it when Punk turned things around, stole the belt from him, and whipped him over and over until McIntyre fled the scene. Lastly, in a pre-tape interview with Pete Dunne, Dunne said that Sheamus just held him down, and he never wanted to hear the name Butch again. So when Sheamus responded in his own interview backstage, he said he was merely trying to lift Dunne up. However, Kaiser interrupted them, saying that their feud was far from over. But at this point, Dunne came up from behind as well and started swinging that shillelagh, injuring Sheamus until officials came in to break it up. And with that, let's go to STFs. And in this week's STFs, we start as always with the Judgment Day edition, and we'll actually start with the former Judgment Day edition, as Rhea Ripley laid the trap for Damian Priest to attack Dom near the top of the arena. So both of them will pick up fines. But the Judgment Day had to have their say as well, because after the match between Priest and Carlito, all 5 of them attacked Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, so they will all get fines. Ivy Now attacked Maxine during the Tornado Tag match, so she will pick up a fine. Isla Dawn broke up the pin by Io Sky, causing a disqualification in the #1 contenders match, so Isla will get a 1-week suspension, but Alba Fire joined in, so she will also get a fine. When Drew McIntyre came out to the ring to interrupt Orton and Gunther, Gunther turned around and Orton was able to land an RKO, so he will pick up a fine. But CM Punk also came out of the crowd to attack McIntyre, so Punk will pick up a fine. Backstage during an interview, Pete Dunne was yet again swinging that shillelagh on Sheamus, so he will pick up a 1-week suspension. And lastly, Big Bronson Reed couldn't have enough, hitting 6 more tsunamis, this time against R-Truth, so Pearce's fine obviously proved to be unsuccessful, but here we gave him a 2-week suspension last week, so we will give him another 2-week suspension this week. Braun Breaker spears his way to winning 2 out of 3 against Zayn tonight, and 2 out of 3 in the series against him. Big Bronson Reed proves to be a Category 6 tsunami by landing 6 more tsunamis against R-Truth. And after winning 2 matches in a row against his former brothers, Damian Priest will get a chance to tag with Rhea Ripley against Dom and Liv. I'm Dr. O'Kay, reporting on the WWE, where everything is okay.